Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it's time for the Q&A, so let's knock out part 2. Alright, first question. Hi Jason, I've been doing Bulgarian light for a short while now and enjoying it. Is it typical though for a workout to just suck out of nowhere? I've had almost a week of small but noticeable progression, but then suddenly today all of my weights felt like they were heavy grinders. It wasn't because of a bad night's sleep or different eating or anything else I can think of. Does this mean I need to back off a little, or is there something else to consider? Thanks. No, bro, that's normal. You got to learn to embrace the suck. If you're going to run this training system, learn to embrace the suck. You are going to have bad days, particularly early on. Now, I consider yesterday a bad day for me. Normally, I squat 485, right? I did 425 for a double, and it was heavy. Then I had problems with my hook grip, my deadlift, right? That's a bad day. Now, early on, your bad days are going to be even worse. You're going to have bad days occasionally, sometimes as often as once a week in your first month or two following this program, where you're going to have to take 100 pounds off the bar. That's normal. And what guys like John Bro say, who coach this type of method, when you have days like that, what you need to do is come in and squat what you can squat. If you're normally a 450 squatter and all you can do is 300 pounds for a single that day and it's a grinder, then get in and do your 1 rep with your 300 pounds. If you know that you're getting enough sleep, you're getting enough food, and everything's cool, just deal with it. It happens. These are one-offs. They happen. They're going to happen more periodically at certain times, particularly when you increase the volume or your body just isn't fully adapting to it. It's perfectly normal. In fact, Greg Knuckles in his Bulgarian manual wrote some stuff about the actual hormone response going on that can cause this, particularly in the first 3 weeks or so of any change on the system. I mean, if you've been following my training logs, you see that I had 2 bad days this week. 2 bad days, right? Where I took 60 pounds off what I normally squat. And then the other 4 days were great. It happens. No biggie. Deal with it, adapt, move forward. If you can find some other way to help with your recovery, then do so, but you will eventually adapt to these workloads and these will become less frequent and less severe. All right, next question. I lost 135 pounds in the last 8 months, went from 355 48 pant size to 220 loose 38 pant size. I'm about 6 foot tall and almost 24. Body analysis at my gym said I had about 165 pounds of lean muscle and I'm around 25% body fat. I do a full body Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 work sets of 5. I haven't added any cardio yet. I haven't eaten less than 2,000 calories a day. Based on the pictures and other information, do you think it's a good idea to start recomping to put back on the significant amounts of muscle and strength I lost? Or do you recommend I keep cutting? Thanks in advance, coach. You lost 135 pounds and 10 inches off of his waist in 8 months. Wow. That's all I can say about that so far, bro. That's good shit. Mad props. What I think you should do at this point, you still got all that loose skin and you still need some body fat you need to lose to be in the healthy range. I'd go ahead and slow cut from here, brother. Get back under 20%. Get under 20%. You can recomp. I mean, look, you're at 25% body fat and you're on a full body strength program Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Go ahead and recomp a little bit and bring yourself on down under 20% body fat. That's what I think you should do, because you guys watch what happens with me, right? I am a genetic fatty also, right? I'm a genetic fatty also. I can overeat and gain fat really easily. You don't need to be worried about bulking and regaining muscle, like at least with any weight gain type, until you're at a lower body fat, because you're going to gain fat easy. It's easy to overeat when we don't watch everything. When we were set like we are, we have the same type of genetic problem there, brother. I get it. I wouldn't recommend that you do anything to gain any weight till you get to 15% body fat. And then if you want to do a clean bulk, go ahead. Probably be a good idea. So I would say go ahead and you can still continue to eat and just lose weight very, very slowly and get yourself down under 20% body fat. That would be the most healthy thing you could do. But at this point, if you cut slow down to 20%, there's no reason you can't gain muscle and strength on your way down. Just lose a pound a week. Don't lose more than about a pound a week from here, and you will continue to be able to make gains while you do so. It'll be just fine. But seriously, you've done really, really good so far. You should be proud of yourself. And, as one of my subscribers, I'm proud of you, bro. So keep fighting the good fight. All right, next question. Wondering what you think about high pulls for building stronger and wider shoulders. I'm susceptible to impingement, especially if I'm not really careful on side laterals. I was considering high pulls to build side and rear delts. I know guys like Jeff Cavalier don't like upright rows because of the internal rotation, but he likes dumbbell high pulls. So I'm wondering why you think dumbbell high pulls are safe and effective, and what about barbell high pulls? I don't think dumbbells offer anything that barbells don't. It's all about hand placement, knowing how high to go, and avoiding the internal rotation. Truth be told, I mean, you could get a shoulder impingement even doing high pulls. Now, are they an amazing shoulder builder? Yeah. I mean, it's like wide grip, snatch grip, high pulls are probably one of the most effective shoulder builders you'll ever find for people who lag there. But, again, you're going to have to learn how to execute them properly. But yeah, side lateral raises will cause impingement. And like, here's the thing. If you're susceptible to impingement, you probably already have impingement. Meaning, how do you know you're susceptible to impingement if you haven't had it already? That's not something that's going to be fully fixed just because you quit doing the exercises. So in your case, if you've already had a shoulder impingement problem, I don't know that snatch grip high pulls are the way that I would go. I would say go ahead and just stick with your overhead work done correctly in such a way that cannot cause further impingement. Starting strength guys have good material on that. And do things like band face pulls. That's going to be your safe option. Face pulls with bands to go ahead and work your side and rear delts. And like I said, I think snatch grip high pulls are fantastic for people who need better shoulder development, that maybe it's a lagging area for them genetically. But again, if you already have a shoulder impingement, I don't know that I would go in that direction, and I don't know that I would recommend that for you personally. It's just my take on it, because there is still some risk there, and I think that risk is going to be dramatically higher for someone who already previously has shoulder impingement, because you're not prone to it, you have it if that's the case, if that makes sense. And that's not going to go away. It's going to get re-aggravated or be made worse by anything that's high risk in regards to that. So I think for you, again, learning to overhead press correctly while standing, and then combine that with, normal rowing and stuff will help. Barbell rows will actually help your delt development. And then maybe band face pulls. All right, next question. If creatine is found naturally in foods the same as fish oil, should you not supplement as you would with omega-3s given the low amount of creatine found in even a full pound of red meat if your intake of these foods is low, given a large amount of protein can be gotten from milk, eggs, and vegan foods? All right. I don't want to get into the whole thing of vegan foods as far as protein goes, but if your goals is maximizing body composition, vegan sources of protein should not be your primary protein sources. Now, someone who's a vegetarian, the milk and eggs, that's fantastic. If you eat a ton of milk and eggs, I would say if your goal is muscle building, you don't really need meat at all if body composition and performance are goals. Meat can become optional at that point. So the issue becomes one of creatine. People who don't eat very much red meat at all probably will be the people who obviously most benefit from creatine. I don't think there's any debate about that. The debate we get into is that people who eat red meat regularly tend to be creatine non-responders, which suggests that the amount of creatine that you need in your diet to maximize results might be lower than people think. In other words, people thinking you need 5 grams of creatine a day might not be true. Now, creatine, when you just buy the powder itself, is so cheap that 5 grams a day, it doesn't cost you anything, meaning a yearly supply of 5 grams of creatine a day is pennies. Like, it's pennies. Your 1 year supply of creatine is probably going to cost you less than a couple pounds of steak would one time. Like a big 2 pounds of steak would cost you more than a year's supply of creatine. So we kind of get into a point of contention there as far as how much people really need. I don't know, man. I'd be willing to bet people could probably maximize their results with 1 or 2 grams of creatine a day. Because again, people who eat a pound of steak 3 times a week pretty much seem to be creatine non-responders for the most part. So let that sink in. But, back to the point of, obviously, if you don't really eat red meat, and you don't even eat much meat at all, let's say you do get your protein from milk and eggs, supplementing creatine, if your goals is maximizing body composition, might not be a bad idea. Because again, at the end of the day, while I'm not big on supplements, creatine is dirt cheap. You can buy a kilo of creatine for less than $20 on Amazon. And all the others, when you study them, don't work any better than the cheap stuff. So if you're paying $30 for a month's supply of some creatine, you're being ripped off. That's a con. You can buy the bulk powder itself in the best usable form already for pennies. Like your daily cost would be like less than a nickel or 10 cents a day. It's not significant, not a big deal. So not a big problem. Go ahead and use it then. All right, next question and last question of the week. Hey, Jason, you advocate power cleans a lot, especially for athletes that need athleticism. But Jordan Feigenbaum says that they aren't really useful as they're mainly a display of force production quickly rather than training it due to the weights being quite submaximal, and it depends on skill quite a bit. And to be honest, I agree. My power clean has barely increased since finishing novice phases. I spend so much pulling resources on perfecting my power cleans rather than getting my deadlift stronger as I train for MMA. Plus, Rip says you can only increase your SVJ by 25%, so it makes sense for power cleans to not really be useful since explosiveness can barely be trained then. I think the athletes should do some power cleans but focus on getting a stronger deadlift, as this will translate into athleticism as the athlete improves in their sports skill training. So what are your thoughts? Thanks. Oh man, this is a fantastic question. One of the best questions I've gotten in a long time, and I'm saving it for last so that people who stick it all the way through the Q&As will get the real stuff. Yeah, power cleans to some extent. I think Dr. Feigenbaum is right, and the answer is to sound like Jordan Feigenbaum is a very nuanced answer. Is there some truth to what he's saying? Yeah, absolutely. They are really a display of strength and skill rather than always training power. I mean, a display of power. But here is what you need to remember. If your goal is to be an athlete that needs explosiveness, doing an explosive exercise like the power clean and the power snatch, one or the other or both, will help you maintain your performance. In other words, your ability to display power relative to your strength does need to be trained to some extent if you need maximum power for a sport. In other words, a lot of times if we don't do any explosive training, it's not that you won't gain power. Is that what happens is that your rate of force production might not keep pace with your strength gains. In other words, someone who only deadlifts and that's the only pull they do from the floor may lose power. Now, I don't mean they're going to lose total power, meaning they're going to lose part of their genetic potential for power because they're developing strength completely without keeping their power component caught up. In other words, we all have a genetic predisposition towards a certain rate of force production. Power is very much genetic. But if we don't do anything at all to focus on maintaining the amount of power our genetic potential allows for relative to our strength, which you could look at something like how much you power clean versus how much you deadlift will tell you a lot on that, then you may lose your power potential when it comes to carrying over for sports, if that makes any sense. Meaning, if you deadlift 600 pounds and you don't do any power training, you're still going to have more power than you did at a 300-pound deadlift, but you're going to have less power than if you did some power cleans and other stuff as far as your total potential relative to your strength. So if you are going to be in a sport that does that, you should be doing some cleaning and snatching in order to keep your rate of force production on par with your strength gain so that you don't lose any of the potential that you have for power. Again, I know, very, very nuanced answer. And again, ultimately, I think the point is, the deadlift will still be good for you to train, absolutely, for an MMA fighter. But you should be doing some of this power work to make sure that that power potential does carry over, even though a power clean itself is mainly just a display of power. You do need to practice that display of power to some extent to get that last little 5% of your total genetic potential relative to your strength. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.